Hello and welcome back. Due to some poor planning, I'm alone today, and I only say poor planning because I have so many questions about this episode, and I would like to talk to the people responsible and ask them things. But it's entirely my fault that the schedule did not work out that way. Maybe I'm not the best planner. But you know who makes a great convoluted plan is Mrs. Bennet. So let's get to it, shall we? My name is Ashley Clements, and this is the Look Back Diaries. Real solid, consistent theme song. That's what you come to me for. It's the consistency. Consistent volume, consistent editing. Look, I see your comments, but I'm also doing my best. I don't have a Charlotte, and I also don't have a mind like Mrs. Bennet or Margaret Dunlap, who wrote this episode. Questions. I have questions. I'll just have to ask you, the viewer. We'll ask them to each other. We will ask the universe, and I'll have Margaret back on and we can talk about it. I could text her right now. She's out of town. Why? What? Explain. What am I even talking about? Let's take a look back. First of all, before I get into watching this episode, I also wanted to have Katie Most on this episode because she made the weirdest prop in the world. But because she's not here, I would just like to sing her praises a little bit. So let's ignore my face, please, in general, and take a look at what you are seeing on the screen because everything you're seeing was placed there by Katie. I don't know how much she repurposed Jenny and Stuart's own book collection. I believe that bookshelf was already in existence, but she styled all of this. She put the things on the wall, on the door behind us, on the bookshelf. She decorated all of this and made it this colorful background that felt realistic as a young woman's room, the kind of room that you grow up in, that you may have grown out of, but still has these remnants of childhood, piggy bank. It's colorful. Katie, you did fantastically, and you made a really weird prop, which is coming up. So now, let's take a look at the green bean gelatin plan.
Good morning, Internet, or, whatever time it is where you are.
Mm-hmm.
What time is it?
So I very intentionally did some messy hair here because I wanted to look like I was underslept. This tank top is from a thrift store. I tied the knots on the top there as a way to shorten it, so because I think otherwise it was too low cut. Just a little yawn there. It's not hard to fake a yawn. If you start to really intensely yawn, your body will continue to do it without you choosing to. This is the first time one of these mugs appears, but there's a show with much tea references. That will come back. We should have filled, I think there's just water in it, but we should have filled it up higher so it didn't look like an empty mug. But I think those were just the mugs of the house. Like, I think those were just Jenny's mugs, but Katie's not here for me to ask. Maybe she brought them. I don't know.
Roll the clip. Thrifty's to be admired, Lizzie, but that's no reason to show off our virtue. But her latest fixation has taken on a whole new level of nuts.
This is a really strange plan.
To go grocery shopping with her at 4 a.m. Who goes grocery shopping at 4 a.m.? Insomniacs? College students? Vampires? Yeah, obviously someone must, or we wouldn't have 24-hour grocery stores. Well, now you can add the Bennett family.
The 24-hour grocery store thing does call into question how large a town is this? Because we're not in one of the major cities, and like I don't know, tell me in the comments, is there a 24-hour grocery store where you are? I've only ever lived in cities.
$4 this week only. When it hits me.
I cannot find green beans in cranberry juice on the internet, but I don't think Margaret made this up. So I don't, have you ever seen this? Does it exist? This is one of my questions. Why this? Why? I feel like she must have seen this weird thing and then decided, oh, we did a change in time. I've added a sweater.
The cranberry juice situation has gotten even stranger. Mom wasn't just buying them because they were on sale. Oh no. She had a plan.
She had a plan.
Green beans.
And this. I mean, Katie Most made this. She made, and like she didn't make something that looked like it. To be clear, she made a cranberry flavored Jell-O mold with green beans in them. I know because, as you'll see shortly, I ate it. I hate the green beans.
Lizzie, this isn't very nice.
Laura looking adorable. Love this shirt.
You always make Mom seem unhinged.
Well, Mommy is unhinged.
You play Mom.
A delightful,
So nice, Mom.
a delightful opportunity for
Oh no, Jane.
for Laura to do Jane's like sort of uncomfortable acting, and I like that we all have slightly different Southern accents. Laura is from Oklahoma, closer to the American South than me from California, but neither of us are Southerners.
This isn't a good plan, Lizzie.
No, it's not a good plan.
No, don't worry. You won't. I've got this. Things I do for my sister. This plan was impressive.
One could just put it down the garbage disposal, to be clear. You put it in the trash, feed it to a dog.
And I wasn't eavesdropping.
I don't know if a dog would eat that. You kind of need like a pig, maybe.
Screw it. They were talking about a second mortgage and the falling value of
now we get into some serious financial concerns. Oh, a little bit of self-awareness from Lizzie there. Probably shouldn't share things about my family's financial situation. This is the first time on this rewatch that I clocked that means that Jane is helping to pay the mortgage, which is a really big responsibility on a 26-year-old. Especially, yeah, there's the threat of like losing the house.
A good panic. You know the parts that are just gelatin?
This is improvised. I looked this up. This was my genuine response to eating it. I looked up the original script. It was not in there. I believe that was also my true reaction, that tasting the Jell-O that had not touched the green beans just tasted like Jell-O. But I know that there was definitely one time, because we had to do multiple takes, where I took a bite that was just Jell-O, but it was like the Jell-O that had touched the green beans and it had absorbed some of the green bean flavor, and it was very, very gross. It was so gross. Green beans just happen to be like one of the only vegetables that I don't like. I love most vegetables, especially green vegetables. I eat all kinds. Green beans is the only kind that I avoid, and especially a canned green bean, which is just very far from even what a green bean should be, but maybe it's the like horrible taste of canned green beans that has ruined my palate for even a fresh green bean. I mean, I can like eat a fresher green bean, but I don't choose to. None of this is, of course, super relevant. It's just ironic. Now, I've also eaten way worse things as an actor, but here's a fun fact. If you see an actor eating in most things, but especially a commercial where like they're doing the like bite and smile, it's literally called a bite and smile, where you like eat it and then you're like, I enjoyed eating this. If you can picture me doing this in a commercial, then you know what I'm talking about. There's a spit bucket. You don't swallow it. You bite and smile, and then you spit that out, which is just to say that I did not have a spit bucket. I also don't think I did more than 2 or 3 bites, and I did not eat a piece of green bean. But I picture Katie buying the ingredients for this, and did she have the kind of, you know, bundt cake mold? Did she acquire it just for this? And she had to mix the powder with the water. I haven't made Jell-O since I was a kid, but that's it, right? It's like Jell-O and water. Maybe you have to make the water hot. Then she put green beans in. Opened up a can of green beans, was like, this is what we're doing, and put it in her fridge. I'm sure she's made weirder things. She has worked on so many projects, but this has got to be on a high list, at least probably weirdest food. Probably the weirdest food, but without having her on, I cannot confirm. Hopefully one day in the future. Katie, we'd love to have you on the show and tell us the weirdest stuff you've ever made. And of course, this parallels a part in Pride and Prejudice, when Mrs. Bennet does send Jane over in the rain so that she gets soaked and has to stay, right? I think that's the beginning of Netherfield. So for us, it's a little bit of a tease, because we've got a few more episodes before the next convoluted plan, I think that episode is actually called Mom's Convoluted Plan, to actually get us to Netherfield. But this is definitely a nod to Jane having to walk, or no, she goes on horseback, right? The book people will tell me. Lizzie's the one who wants to walk and everyone thinks she's crazy. So I think Mrs. Bennet wouldn't give Jane the carriage and sent her over on horseback so that she would get soaking wet. You can feel free to remind me in the comments. Why is Lizzie choosing to thwart this plan by ingesting this? I think the answer is probably comedy. Lizzie has a keen sense of comedy. No, but the writers did. Let's take a look at the comments and see what you all thought of this genius plan. Mrs. Vero Darcy says, is it because George Wickham's back in town and neither of us got any sleep last night, and that's when Darcy lost a beat? Just imagine him. Well, you would. You're his wife, I guess. That's a little weird for Lizzie. Lauren Conrad says, I love the way this episode and the whole show in general is hilarious while dancing around some pretty heavy, dark stuff, which is pretty much what Jane Austen's original novel does. Sure, yeah, fear of losing the house. Hiowa says, we're buying canned green beans in cranberry juice at 4 in the morning. This should be on a t-shirt. Should it? Do you want that t-shirt? Fiadira1 says, watching these while reading the book is absolute gold. Ah, here's the Pride and Prejudice reference that I knew would be in here. Love Peace Natty says, quote, Jane was therefore obliged to go on horseback, and her mother attended her to the door with many cheerful prognostics of a bad day. Her hopes were answered. Jane had not been gone before it rained hard. Her sisters were uneasy for her, but her mother was delighted. The rain continued the whole evening without intermission. Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice, Chapter 7. And Grace Calkins says, the one episode where Lizzie's hair is not on point, but it's still super great. Why is there such great hair in this world, and why don't I have it? Here's where we recognize the negativity bias, because this is a thing in which she says, I have great hair, and then Shanae Prasad says this is something I wonder on a daily basis. I mean, why? And Kathy Evans says, I would also love to have her or Jane's hair. That's a nice compliment to me, but the negativity bias means all I hear is her saying, your hair's not on point. Except that on the other hand, I very intentionally did that. And what I'm disappointed really is that you can't tell that's a choice. Because I'm literally yawning in the introduction. So I feel like the kind of messy, fun thing says, I can't. I mean, I also clearly pulled out pieces. I guess it's confusing because I'm not great at doing hair. So there are times that I wanted my hair to look good and it does not look good. But that one, it very specifically tried to make my hair look bad. And I succeeded. And you missed that that was on purpose. Blah! Let me just fix my hair. And that's a green bean gelatin plan. See you next time.